There are a lot of die-hard Disney fans out there that think, why on earth would anybody plan a trip to Walt Disney World in Florida and not stay in an official Walt Disney World hotel? And I used to be one of those people. I'm recovering from being a Disney stay-on-property addict. Disclaimer, I do not own a vacation rental. I am not being sponsored by a vacation rental. I am not trying to sell you a vacation rental. I'm just somebody who, after probably 11 straight years of spending my money to stay in a Disney resort hotel, has realized that's not the only way to do it, and probably not even the best way to do it. I'm Morgan from the Very Unofficial Travel Guides. I've been making travel videos for over 15 years of popular and not so popular tourist destinations to give you a very honest, unofficial look at what it's like to be there. My YouTube channel has over 18 million views, and a lot of those views are from some of the first videos I made, which were trying to convince people to stay in Disney resorts. Now, I'm not saying that the Disney resorts aren't fantastic. They are, but I have a list of things that I think will help you find a house that you'll be happy with, some things that might be obvious and some things that might not be obvious to you. And as I'm going through this list, if you think any of this helped you, please make sure you press the thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't done it yet. And make sure you watch to the end, because after staying in the house we're staying in now, I have kind of a new, most important factor. So let me take you through this list. Of course, one of the first things that's going to be important, besides just how much are you going to spend, and by the way, you're basically across the board going to spend less than staying in a Disney resort, and you're gonna have so much more space. We'll talk about that later. The first thing you wanna look at is probably location. And if you look at a map of the Walt Disney World Resort area, down here in the southwest direction from the parks, this is the area where there is the highest concentration of vacation rentals. If you go to AirBnB, if you go to VRBO, you will see there are probably thousands of houses down here in this area that are available to rent. And as somebody who has taken a lot of time looking through these houses and also staying in some of these houses, I can tell you, if you look too long, eventually they all kind of start to look the same. For the past 3 years, we have stayed here on the Highlands Reserve Golf Course. There are plenty of really great houses around here, and it's close to a grocery store. And from here, if the traffic is good, we can get to Animal Kingdom in about 25 minutes. Epcot, half an hour. Magic Kingdom, maybe 35, 40 minutes. And now listen, if you are one of those people who always stays on Disney property, you might be saying,
yeah, see, that's why I want to stay on property, because we have the resort buses and we're much closer.
But my experience has been, even though you're closer, taking the resort buses doesn't usually get you there quicker. When you're staying in a house like this, when you're ready to go, you get in your car and you drive there. When you're taking the resort bus, you go to the bus stop, and then the next bus might not come for 15 minutes, and then you still have the 15 to 20 minute drive to get there. I never thought that this would be something I would appreciate, but I just love knowing when I'm ready to go, then I'm leaving. And I know I'm gonna repeat myself here, but I honestly don't feel like it takes longer to get to the parks from here than it does just using the resort buses from the resorts. The size and the shape of the house is something that I'm realizing is becoming more and more important to us when we come down here. So at the most, we are around 10 people. And the house we're staying in this time, this first time we stayed here, you can see this is the house, has 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, and for the way that we usually stay with each other, this is enough. But the house we stayed in last year had some things that were more optimal for our group. And one of them was, it was on 2 levels. The reason that I think having 2 floors is better than having everything on 1 floor is, if you're a big group, it's just inevitable that you're gonna be on different rhythms. There's gonna be people getting up earlier, there's gonna be people going to bed later, and I realized in the past 10 days where everybody was staying here that when everything is on 1 floor, we have the 2 big bedrooms on this side and then the 3 smaller rooms on this side, it's just a little bit harder to let everybody have their own space. And a lot of these vacation homes around here that have 2 levels also have kind of a separate like living room area upstairs. The house we stayed in last year had that, and that would have been great for us this year because we're just really on different rhythms this time. And we felt like the people who were staying awake later had to be extra specially careful to be quiet, and the people waking up early in the morning also had to take care. So one piece of advice I can give you is if you're gonna be a bigger group, try to find a house that has some kind of extra living room, lounge area, in addition to like the main living room area like you can see here. Another thing that I think is really practical and really helpful if you're gonna be a big group getting ready for the parks in the morning is try to find a house that has at least 3 bathrooms. And one thing about this house that I really did not appreciate is 2 of the bathrooms are railroad bathrooms, meaning they're shared between 2 bedrooms and there's doors on each side. Of course, we're all family here. We found a way to make it work. Nobody accidentally walked in on somebody else in the shower or on the toilet. But if I had the choice, I would rather have bathrooms that are not shared. And that's just something that you might want to look for when you are going through the listings. So before we move on to the next point, think about if you want everybody on 1 floor or if you will appreciate having 2 floors so people can kind of get out of the way of each other. Check out if the house that you're interested in has shared bathrooms, and maybe consider finding a house that has 2 living rooms or some kind of extra lounge area. Speaking of privacy, one thing you have to know is a lot of these vacation rental homes in the Disney area are very close to each other, and some of them even share a wall in the backyard or these cages over the pools. There's always a cage over the pool. And you have to consider if that's gonna work for you or not. And for us, we really like having a private pool area. We went for a walk this afternoon just here around the Highland Reserve area, and you can see there are so many houses where the pool backs up to either another pool or just to the street. So if somebody's going for a walk, if somebody's driving down the street here, you basically have no privacy. And I'm not saying that we're doing anything at the pool that we don't want other people to see, but I just don't like the feeling of being on display when we're having maybe dinner out by the pool or when we're swimming. So when you're looking at houses, just consider what is behind and next to the house, and is that gonna be okay for us when we're spending time out there in our swimsuits? And speaking of pools, almost all of these houses have pools, which is a really great thing. You can come home from the parks at night, all the kids jump in the pool to cool down if it's warm outside. I'm recording this video on January 11th of 2024, and it's currently 47 degrees outside.
47 degrees outside.
Thanks, Florida. One thing you'll notice when you are going through the listings on Airbnb, on VRBO, is that pool heating is usually an extra cost. And it costs an average of around $300 a week because the electricity to heat these pools is a lot. And if you're thinking,
pool heat. I don't need pool heat. I want to cool down.
Trust me, you want pool heat. The water in these pools gets really cold. I know, because the house I'm staying in right now, the pool heater broke for a few days and that water got cold. So make sure your house has pool heat and make sure you have the budget for the pool heat because you're really gonna want it. I think even if the weather's warmer, you just appreciate a slightly warmed up pool other than a freezing cold pool. And speaking of pools, a lot of these houses are part of some kind of bigger complex, and they will have a central pool area, and some of them even have a central water park area. I haven't stayed at one of those, but it's definitely something to consider. However, in reading a lot of the reviews, one topic that came up a few times that kind of turns me off from that, it seems like a lot of people don't know how to act right there. I read quite a few reviews that said something like, we would have enjoyed going to the water slides there, but there were always drunk people hanging around, or other people's kids ruined it because they were so rude. And I just appreciate having our own pool where I know it's just gonna be us.
I don't need to be dealing with other people's rude kids on my vacation.
I'm going to the theme parks. I'm dealing with enough other kids. Speaking of reviews, a word about the reviews. I would never rent a house that had no reviews, and personally, if a house has a ton of good reviews and 1 or 2 bad reviews, I kind of think that's okay because people are more likely to sit down and take the time to write a bad review if they had a bad experience than they are to sit down and write a good review if they had a good experience. So Personally, 1 or 2 bad reviews doesn't bother me as long as there's a ton of really good reviews. However, sometimes I also feel like you can't really trust the reviews. The house we're staying in now is adequate, but it has a ton of 5-star reviews, and when we checked in here, we walked around this house and thought, where are those people used to staying? Like I said, for the price, this house has been adequate, but we've had so many problems with it, including mice, and I'm not talking about Mickey and Minnie, so I don't know what to tell you about reviews. However, I think that if you see reviews and the owner of the house has answered the reviews, that to me shows that the owner is a little more invested in making sure that the guests are having a good time and that the house is in order and that they haven't just given it up to some management company and hope that everything's going all right. So take good reviews with a grain of salt. Don't be necessarily freaked out if a house has a couple bad reviews. And if there are bad reviews, make sure that the owner has answered them, because then you'll know the owner really cares about what's going on. All right, now getting to my new most important factor, something that I really missed this time staying in this house, and that is the view at the end of the day. The house that we're staying in now has this totally private pool, which is really great. Nobody's watching us swim. We're not disturbed by anybody walking or driving past. And in the morning, we do have a pretty nice view of the sun coming up. But you know what's better than the sun coming up?
The sun going down.
The house that we stayed at last year had a view facing west. So we had pool, golf course, sunset. Honestly, the sunsets here in this part of Florida, it's like an attraction for itself. And on the days where you're not going to the parks or you're coming home from the parks a little bit earlier, it is so nice to sit outside next to the pool with a cold beverage, or like this week, a hot beverage, and just watch the sun go down. And so even if everything about the house we were staying in right now was perfect, I wouldn't stay here again next year because I just really miss having the sun in the afternoon and watching the sun go down. So do yourself a favor when you're looking at listings. Don't think about just, is the pool private necessarily, but look at which direction the pool faces and try to find a pool that faces to the west. Is it nice to stay in the Disney bubble? Of course it is. Is it nice to use the Disney transportation buses to get to the parks and back? Yes. And is it nice to get all the perks that you get by staying at the Disney resorts? Well, the whole perks and how little they are now compared to what they were 10 years ago, that's a subject for a different video. But yes, it is nice to remain in that Disney magical bubble. But do you know what's even more magical? Saving thousands of dollars and having so much more space for the same nightly price of staying at the least expensive resorts at Disney World on Disney property. You can literally have a 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with a private pool that's not even that much further away from the parks. I never thought I would become one of these people. I loved staying on Disney property, but once I saw what you can get for the money and that it doesn't even really take that much longer to get to the parks, I kind of realized I would much rather have a couple extra $1,000 in my pocket than stay in that magical Disney bubble. So if you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. If you're looking at a specific house and you want me to take a look at it for you, write it in the comments. Send me a direct message on the Facebook page for the Very Unofficial Travel Guides or on Instagram. Make sure you hit that thumbs up and press subscribe before you go, and I'll see you back here soon. Bye-bye.